Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
We are diving into a topic that it really touches on every corner of the modern media landscape.
It really does.
We're talking about the recent, and I think it's fair to say, highly contentious introduction of a best podcast category by the Golden Globes.
Contentious is definitely the word. And the source material we have today, it's fascinating. It doesn't just, report on the awards.
No, not at all. It levels this really strong, detailed critique at the whole decision.
At the decision, at the nominees they picked, and maybe most importantly, at what this whole move says about the relationship between, Hollywood and independent media.
Exactly. So that's really our mission today. We're looking at this pivotal moment where the established entertainment industry is suddenly racing to, legitimize a medium.
And we should definitely put legitimize in air quotes there.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because this is a medium that independent creators built from the ground up with their own sweat and their own risk.
So the big question, the one that our sources keep coming back to, is what criteria are these traditional gatekeepers even using? How are they defining the best when they finally decide to step into this space?
And the analysis we're looking at suggests it's not really about celebrating audio excellence, is it?
Not primarily, no. The argument is that this is really about money. It's about power.
And control.
And control of these, huge popular media ecosystems. It's a classic pattern.
It is. The establishment waits until the indie pioneers, the little guys, have taken all the financial hits, all the risks.
They wait until success is proved, until there's clearly a ton of money to be made.
And then they swoop in.
Then they move in to define it, to regulate it, and to control it for themselves.
It's just a fascinating case study.
Yeah.
The prestige economy trying to finally catch up to the content economy.
100%. It's not just an award. It's a strategic conflict, a structured attempt by the old guard to claim this new wild territory.
Okay, so to really get this, we have to go back to the beginning. We need to look at the origin story of podcasting.
You have to understand where it came from to see why this is such a big deal.
So our sources, they paint this really specific picture of podcasting's early days.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't glamorous.
Not at all. The central argument is that podcasting used to be the default path for people who, put it bluntly, couldn't quite make it in traditional media.
It was the minor leagues. That's the phrase they used.
Totally. It was seen as this refuge for the struggling comedian, the commentator, who was too controversial.
Right. If you couldn't get a network deal, if Hollywood wasn't calling, if CNN wasn't interested.
Or if you just didn't fit their mold, If you felt like you weren't going anywhere.
You started a podcast.
But it was the thing people did when they had nothing left to lose and were willing to try something new, something outside the system.
And the source material has the perfect example of this. It's basically the founding myth of the medium.
You're talking about Marc Maron.
Exactly. Marc Maron and his show, WTF. The source notes he launched that show years and years ago for one reason.
Because he wasn't going anywhere in Hollywood. He said it himself many times.
He started that podcast almost as an act of professional desperation. It was a what the hell move he was doing out of his garage.
And then almost by accident, it turns into one of the most respected and eventually one of the biggest business ventures in the audio world.
That story just perfectly captures the whole trajectory, doesn't it?
It's the whole medium in a nutshell.
Yeah.
It started outside the industry. It gave a second life to people who were overlooked or black.
And the incredible irony, of course, is that the thing built on being an outsider became such a massive business that Hollywood couldn't ignore it anymore.
That's the pivot point. The shift from this accidental refuge to a major profit center, that's what made the establishment change its tune.
And it wasn't a straight lineup either. The source reminds us that podcasting has had its ups and downs.
Oh, yeah. It was supposedly huge, 15, 20 years ago in its first.
Then kind of died off a bit, right, as YouTube just exploded onto the scene.
Exactly. And now it's back, bigger than ever, but it's different.
How so?
Well, the source makes this great point that what we call a podcast now is very often a video podcast.
Right. Distributed on YouTube.
Distributed everywhere, but especially YouTube. And that's a critical point because it means the whole conversation about podcast success is now tied directly to the world of independent video.
Which brings us right back to money.
Always. It brings us to what the source calls the follow the money pattern.
And the argument here is just crystal clear. The establishment, Hollywood, legacy media, you name it, they only enter a creative space after it's been made safe.
Once there's clearly a proven model and money to be made, they let the independents go first.
They let them figure out the tech, the monetization, prove there's an audience.
Absorb all that initial risk.
Yeah.
And once the business model is solid, once profitability is a sure thing, that's when the big corporation.
The implication is pretty stark then. Hollywood is coming for podcasting. and coming for YouTube now because all the hard, risky work has already been done for them.
By other people, exactly.
And in the last few years, we've seen more than just attention. We've seen this massive, almost reckless spending.
Oh, totally. And the hosts of the original source, they claim to have some inside baseball.
And the numbers they share they're pretty staggering.
They are. We're talking about specific examples of, say, reality TV stars or certain celebrities getting paid just enormous sums of money.
Tens of millions of dollars is the quote for exclusive podcast deals.
Colossal amounts of money being thrown at people who have celebrity prestige, but not necessarily a proven track record in the audio space.
Which leads to this essential, really surprising detail that makes the whole thing look, well, inorganic.
You're talking about the listener numbers.
Yeah, despite these huge multi-million-dollar deals. And they mention Alex Cooper of Call Her Daddy and her alleged $100 million deal.
Which is just mind-boggling.
The source claims that the actual verified listening numbers for some of these celebrity podcasts are, and this is a direct quote, abysmal.
Okay, so if we're thinking like a business strategist here, that just doesn't add up, right? The deals aren't based on a direct ROI from...
So what's the play? What's the real strategy?
Well, it seems to be about other things. It could be market signaling, showing you're a serious player in the audio space.
Or maybe attracting specific high-end advertisers who want to be associated with that celebrity name.
Exactly. Even if the raw numbers don't justify the huge upfront cost, it's an investment in platform control, not necessarily content performance.
So they're paying for the name. They're paying for the prestige, not the actual proven reach.
It's a massive shortcut. You're essentially buying a very expensive celebrity placeholder to occupy market share instead of rewarding someone for building an audience from the ground up.
And that completely bypasses the independent creators who did it the hard way, listener by listener, for years.
It does. The investment money isn't following the audience. It's following the pre-existing corporate and celebrity connections.
And the source was clear to say, look, if you can get that deal, good for you. Go for it.
Of course.
But they also stress that these deals are not a reliable indicator of who people are actually listening to.
Not at all. They're an indicator of who Hollywood and the big platforms want people to listen to. They're trying to create an illusion of success.
An illusion they can then validate with, say, an awards show.
And that is exactly where the Golden Globes come in.
Here's where it gets really interesting. This financial maneuvering, it leads directly to the Golden Globes controversy.
Right. When the Globes announced this Best Podcast category, the source material said it would spark conversation.
Which is media speak for people are going to be really pissed off.
And they were. The backlash was immediate and for very clear reason. By creating this award, the Globes had to publicly define what they thought the best was.
And their choices, they looked less like a genuine recognition of the medium.
And a lot more like a defense of the existing Hollywood club.
Let's just go through the 6 nominees, the ones the source calls the in crowd, because the list itself is very revealing.
It really is. First up, you have Armchair Expert with Dax Shepard.
Obvious celebrity tie-in.
Right. Then Call Her Daddy, which we just mentioned. Alex Cooper, massive corporate deal. That's a validation of big money investment.
Then you have Good Hang with Amy Poehler.
Another huge, undeniable celebrity name.
Okay, what else?
The Mel Robbins podcast, which fits into that very safe, non-political self-help category.
Safe is a good word for it.
Then Smartless, which is, Jason Bateman and his friends, another celebrity interview show.
So that's 5. What's the last one?
Up First from NPR.
So that represents the legacy media, the established news.
Exactly. So what you have is this very curated, very safe mix of news, advice, and celebrity show. The one thing most of them have in common is
Hollywood affiliation, or at least some kind of major corporate backing.
Right. But it's the snubs, the out crowd, that really blew this whole thing.
This is where it goes from just being biased to being genuinely controversial.
Yeah.
The Globes were immediately accused of strategically avoiding anything popular that might be messy.
And the biggest, most unavoidable snub of all was the Joe Rogan rants.
I mean, you can't really have a best podcast category and ignore what the source calls the most popular podcast on the fucking planet.
You really can't. By any metric you want to use, his audience, it's on another level. And the source also makes a point to say he's often miscategorized as purely right.
Yeah, they argue his guest list is actually pretty broad. But regardless of his politics, just leaving him out, it's a statement.
It's a huge statement.
Yeah.
But he wasn't the only one. The source lists a bunch of other big politically focused shows that were ignored, mostly conservative ones.
The Megyn Kelly Show, Tucker Carlson, Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens, all of them have massive audience.
But, and this is a crucial point, it wasn't just conservative voices they snubbed.
No, they also ignored the huge left-leaning political podcast, Pod Save America.
And it wasn't even just politics. They also left out massively popular genre show. The source specifically mentions the true crime genre,
which is a genre that basically built modern podcasts. Shows like More and Rotten Mango have gigantic dedicated followings.
And leaving them out is a really important non-political piece of data, because it suggests the real criteria wasn't about avoiding politics.
No, it was about avoiding non-Hollywood success.
That's the core of the argument. They tried to frame it as avoiding controversy, but the source points out the hypocrisy there.
Right, because plenty of Hollywood-backed podcasts are political.
Oh, absolutely. But they're only political in a, quote, certain direction.
A direction that aligns with the general Hollywood consensus. Anything outside of that, no matter how popular.
So the underlying claim is that the selections prioritize people who are already one of them, people with a Hollywood background, maybe people who are already in the...
It's about institutional gatekeep, not about celebrating what the public is actually listening.
And the final proof of that is the exclusion of someone like Mr. Bell.
Huge creator. Built his audience entirely on his own, outside, not political.
But he doesn't have those Hollywood ties. So he's out. For the source, that's the smoking gun. It proves popularity is secondary to affiliation.
It really paints a picture of the Golden Globes trying to legitimize their own place in the podcasting world, not the other way around.
Exactly. And the way they set up the rules for this award, well, that makes it even more...
Okay, so let's get into the mechanics of this, because this is where the critique goes from, snubs and bias to what the source calls a systemic conflict of interest.
And if you're analyzing a system like this, the devil is always tails. Or in this case, the lack.
Let's just run through the technical eligibility rules they provided, because they seem very procedural, but they don't really say anything about quality.
And not at all. Okay, so the rules were the podcast had to be original content. You needed to have at least 6 episodes released between January 1st and September 30th of that year.
Okay, logistical check.
And each episode had to be at least 30 minutes.
Yeah, that's it.
That's pretty much it. They're just format and schedule rules. What the source highlights is the complete lack of any quality criteria.
Nothing about production value, storytelling, consistency.
Or, and this is the big one, no consideration of raw audio. Nothing.
So podcast experts were just
scratching their head. Because without clear criteria, the whole process feels completely arbitrary, feels murky.
And if the rules are murky, they can be bent to get the result you want.
Precisely. But the controversy really exploded when people looked into who was actually doing the vetting.
This is the crucial detail. The company that compiled the initial shortlist of eligible podcasts was a data firm called Luminate Data.
Right. And it turns out Luminate Data is owned by a massive corporation called Penske Media.
Now, this is where it starts to feel like, as the source puts it, a circle jerk.
It's a classic case of vertical integration. So Penske Media owns Luminate, the data company doing the vetting.
But Penske Media also owns the Golden Globes itself.
And it goes deeper. Penske Media also owns the 2 biggest industry trade magazines, Variety and The Hollywood Reporter.
The very magazines where studios and celebrities buy incredibly expensive for your consideration ads to campaign for. Golden Globe.
The conflict of interest is it's staggering. You have a system where the company running the award also owns the data firm that creates the eligibility list and owns the magazines where you have to advertise to win the award.
The source just calls it a scam scheme, a completely closed loop designed to reward the insiders.
It ensures that the selection process isn't based on what the public likes, but on internal corporate spending and who's playing the Hollywood.
And the source ties this directly to a bigger strategy, a push for union control.
This is the long-term implication for... The argument is that creating an official Hollywood-backed award category is the first step for union writers and actors to get a door podcast.
How does that work?
Well, once an award like this exists, it creates a formal industry standard. It gives the unions a foothold. They can then start to argue that anyone recognized by these awards should be subject to union rules.
So paying dues, adhering to certain contracts, minimum rates, all of that.
It's a way to institutionalize the labor behind digital media, which is something they haven't been able to do before. It's about bringing this wild, independent space under the control of the establishment.
Which makes the reactions from the snubbed hosts even more interesting. You have this huge contrast in philosophy.
They really do. The source guesses that most of the big snubbed hosts, like Rogan, probably just thought, the Golden Globes, who cares, and just ignored it.
Because their business exists completely outside of that validation.
But then you have the really telling anecdote about Ben Shapiro.
Right. His show has been around for over a decade. It's very successful. But the source says he launched this all-out publicity campaign.
He was actively talking to the industry magazines, the Penske-owned ones, and he even bought massive billboard space in Times Square to promote his eligibility for a Golden Globe.
Which is just such a different mindset, isn't it? Actively spending a ton of money to chase that establishment validation.
Well, a validation from the very system that was set up to exclude him. It's a fascinating contrast with the truly independent mindset of just ignoring them entirely.
So if this is the game plan for audio, what does this tell us about the future of YouTube?
That's the million-dollar question. The source argues this isn't a one-off thing, it's a blueprint.
A blueprint for how Hollywood wants to take over YouTube.
That's the warning shot here for every independent creator. The strategic goal is to make YouTube safe, to make it vetted by Hollywood.
To put an institutional filter on what was built to be an unfiltered platform.
Remember why YouTube got so huge in the first place, right? People wanted to see normal. They wanted authenticity that they weren't getting from polished network TV.
But this new effort, the source argues, is designed to flip that, to turn YouTube into a place where only Hollywood-vetted YouTubers get the big promotions and the big awards.
It's the co-option strategy. The source even names the new CEO of YouTube, Neil Mohan, and alleges he's supportive of this whole Hollywood circle.
So the prediction is that even if YouTube keeps its own internal award, Hollywood will just create its own Best of YouTube award that only features celebrities or creators who play their game.
And they'll justify it with what the source calls the gravitas argument.
What's that?
They found this quote from a Hollywood figure saying the Golden Globe Award will give podcasting more respect, more gravitas, and make it more accessible.
Accessible. It's already the most accessible medium on the planet.
That's the whole point. It's the purest form of the gatekeeper mindset. The implication is that this thing that millions of people already love and respect is only now worth something because Hollywood has decided to give it a trophy.
It's so arrogant. The industry swoops in years late and declares, okay, now it's officially important.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this isn't a new playbook. This is a cycle that repeats itself over and over again with every new medium.
The source gives some great historical parallels for this.
They do. The first one is webcomics and web.
Right. For years, the traditional comic book and animation industry just dismissed them. They called it amateur hour.
Pathetic nothing burgers was the phrase I think they used because it didn't have the old infrastructure of printing presses and big studios.
But that dismissal only lasted until the money showed up.
As soon as independent creators proved there was a huge global audience and a viable business model, especially on mobile, suddenly Hollywood was knocking on their door.
Suddenly, they were taking webcomics seriously and turning them into big-budget movies and TV shows.
The trailblazers were ignored until the path was paved with gold and completely risk-free for the corporate.
And they make the same exact point about crowdfunding.
Oh yeah. For years, crowdfunding, especially for things like indie comics or films, was seen as, well, as begging.
A vanity project.
Yeah.
The idea was that if you were a real artist, you'd have a traditional deal. There was a real stigma attached to asking your audience for money directly.
But now it's completely normal. The source points out that huge, risk-averse corporations like Mattel and Hasbro use crowdfunding on their own websites now.
It's not a stigma anymore. It's just a smart business tool.
A tool that was proven to work by independent creators who had to endure that stigma for years.
So the source ties this all together into one big thesis.
The pattern is always the same. The industry waits for individuals to blaze a trail. Then they come in, take it over, push out the originals.
And keep the money and the prestige for the approved elite who are one of us.
And you can feel the frustration in the source. This system lets celebrities who are already part of the club take this huge shortcut to the top.
While the independent people who actually worked in the trenches for a decade or two to build the audience from nothing get marginalized.
It's all about maintaining control over who gets status and who gets paid. Hollywood has to be the center of the universe.
They have to be the ones who anoint the winners to make sure all the benefits circle back into their own system.
So this whole award, when you look at it through that lens, it's not about celebration. It's a sophisticated play for control.
So what does this all mean? We've done this deep dive into the Golden Globe's strategy for their new podcast award.
And we found the critique is that it's all based on leveraging celebrity and corporate ties, not actual audience numbers.
We detailed those pretty shocking conflicts of interest with Penske Media owning everything. The awards, the data, the ad space.
Which really supports the source's view that it's a closed, self-serving.
And we put it all in this larger historical context, this repeating pattern of the establishment co-opting independent media as soon as it's profitable.
From webcomics to crowdfunding, it's the same story.
So the final implication for you, the listener, pretty clear. When you see this, it's not about recognition. It's about the establishment giving itself a shortcut to prestige and control in a new space.
They are defining success after the fact. They're making sure that the highest awards, the Golden Globe, are kept for the institutional insight.
It's a system designed to make sure the house always, they let the independents innovate, prove the concept.
And then they move in with the big money and the awards to take it over, pushing the original innovative aside.
Which leaves us with a final provocative thought for you to chew on. Given this pattern, this cycle that just keeps repeating, what's next?
What's the emerging independent medium out there right now that legacy media is dismissing as amateur hour?
What's the thing they're calling a vanity project today that has the real potential to build a massive audience?
Because whatever that is, that's the next space that Hollywood will eventually try to co-opt and control with its own set of awards.
So keep an eye on the spaces that are being ignored. That's where the future is being built. We'll catch you on the next Deep Dive.